This one is Tales from the Dark Side. The melting down, the crashing and burning of Eric Schneiderman, the biggest pal the gangster banksters ever had. Schneiderman and his buddies there, Holder and Obama. The amazing thing is that the big gangster banksters that robbed and looted the country, they were the largest contributors to the Democratic Party during the run-up to the Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and even George Bush presidential campaigns. When you take a look behind the green curtain, literally the green curtain, you're going to find that it's not just the Wizard of Oz that's been making the trillions vanish. And yes, I said trillions. This story goes way back before Zuccotti Park. Zuccotti Park, Occupy, and Barack Obama and Eric Schneiderman's and Eric Holder's wonderful little friend there, Matt Taibbi. This story goes back to before the hiring of Professor William Black. It goes back into post-World War II, and it goes into the 50s and the 60s. If you take a look into the congressional hearings associated with the unregulated real estate markets that went on in the 1960s, 1963, all the way up to 1969, 1970. The unregulated real estate markets. And you start looking at the writings of people like Paul Friggins and Don Bowles. And there were many others. Don't let me forget to mention that there were many others. The unbelievable real estate frauds in New York, the real estate frauds in the Poconos, the real estate frauds in Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, Alaska, Hawaii. Florida was hugely famous, massively famous. It was not just the Lehigh Acres speculations. Up into the Carolinas, all through Georgia, Mississippi, Sessions, Alabama. Mr. Jeff Sessions, come on down. Panama City, Florida is a wonderful place to examine the land development speculation casino game with all the funny little real estate developments of the St. Joe Paper Company. You can examine the real estate development subdividing scams of the Great Western Railroads. They laid out huge paper subdivisions all over the western United States in the 1800s. Ain't that amazing? David Bowen and Richard Bowen, David Dayen. There's so many people like Lynn Szymanski and a lot of other people running around like William Wagoner out there on the West Coast. Old Bill Wagoner there. He thinks that it's him and his wacky little television show there that exposed all these bankster gangsters savings and loan and mortgage swindlers like WAMU and Bank of America and Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs, and I can go on with Citibank. And one of my favorite little gang of bankster gangsters is Chase National Bank. Chase National Bank. That's that bunch around the Rockefellers and that bunch around the Rothschilds and Hochschilds of upstate New York. You see, folks, this land scamming, mortgage rustling, foreclosure foreclosure swindling has been going on for many decades. Didn't just start in Orange County, California. And the integrity of the real estate records, the big problem with that, did not start in Orange County, California, or Santa Barbara, the California 18 story. It did not start in Santa Barbara, California. This real estate organized crime, tinkle down economics, the trickle down economics of the Clinton style dirt dealing. There's a very interesting scenario indeed, is the Madison Guarantee Savings and Loan and the Arkansas Industrial Development Bank, and how the Clintons pulled their real estate scheming and scamming all over Arkansas. You know, the Bush's big buddy there, Bill and Hillary, George and Barbara, George and Laura Bush, the dynamic mafia families of Chicago title, hello Chicago title, American title, you know, the nail gun murders there of American title. Fatco, First American Title Company. I'd like to give a tip of the hat to my old friend there, Nelda Luce, Radabow Blair of the Woodlands, and K.C. Tuckness, K-Doc Tuckness, and Judge Barb Sadler. If Barb Sadler's listening, I want you to understand something, Judge Sadler. Judge Lynn Hughes and Judge Lee Rosenthal and Judge Carl Boo and Judge Norman Black, the federal judges in Houston, ran one hell of a cover-up for them boys out of London and Zurich and Zug and Lebanon there and Monaco. Can you imagine that, Judge Sadler? The people that ran the unrecorded land fraud schemes in Harris and Montgomery County, they're out of Monaco. They're Saudi Arabian, Lebanese bankster gangsters that operate out of London, Zurich and Zug, Switzerland, and Dubai. This story is deep, folks. This land scamming, land swindling, hocus pocus mortgages and the vanishing trillions, this goes back before John Tower, Senator Kay Bailey Hutchinson, Senator Phil Graham, Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez, all from Houston, Texas, and the chicken choker himself. He got caught choking his chicken on video there all over the internet. Congressman Joe Barton from Conroe, Texas. Come on down, Congressman Barton. You see, folks, these land schemes and scams are very familiar to Catherine Austin Fitts. Catherine Austin Fitts, who was the Undersecretary of the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, that Catherine Austin Fitts, and she was the director of the FHA for George Bush Sr. Hi, Kathy Fitts. You might want to get Kat Wolford from FDIC, the white elephant marketing lady from the FDIC. Kat Wolford works for Bearing Point and Carlyle Group, and apparently today she's working for the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. She's some kind of a consultant to the Central Intelligence Agency, USAID, which were heavily involved in the financial mechanisms, the moving of vast amounts of blackout money through the banks, like HSBC and UBS, and my favorite, the Western Bank Houston. Come on down. Rita Lababetti Group and the Westgate Investments and Purple Capital. Now, folks, I'm going to kind of wrap this up because I know I'm making your head spin, but you got to remember something here, folks. The vanishing of trillions is directly connected to the Panama Papers. The money laundering of Manuel Noriega and Ferdinand and Imelda Marcos, the Iran-Contra schemes and scams, Charlie Wilson's war. Let's not leave old Charlie Wilson's war out of this. And the Khashoggis and the Gabanafars and the Bin Ladens. You take into the good look into the death of Roland Carnaby. Roland Carnaby from Willis, Texas. They're just above Conroe. And this is kind of directed to Nelda Luce Radabow Blair and Judge Barb Sadler. When you take a look into what Roland Carnaby was involved in, you'll start beginning to see the significance of Mike Atkinson, Robert Corison, George Mishner, and a bunch of the other players that Peter Bruton of the Houston Post and the Houston Chronicle began to write about in his book, The Mafia, the CIA, and George Bush. The grand financial scheming and scamming behind America's dirt dealing, savings and loan, bank robbing fiasco. Folks, this is a giant debacle. And in a final parting shot here, I want to bring everybody's attention to Eric Schneiderman. Mr. Schneiderman, you know, you're a material witness in my case before the United States Supreme Court. Yeah, that's right. This funny-looking guy right here has got Eric Schneiderman's attorney generals on notice to the U.S. Supreme Court. And yes, Renee Power, and yes, Valerie Lopez and Pam Ragland, this is a real story. How America got shafted. The story that goes way beyond Rolling Stone and Matt Taibbi's accounts. You see, Matt Taibbi was a very loyal Democrat, and he kept carrying on and distracting people over here with the story with that gang Occupy from Zuccotti Park. Long before Zuccotti Park, there was this guy right here down in Houston, Texas, blowing the whistle like crazy on the many trillions of dollars that were being looted by Rico Realty and their gangs over at the title insurance companies. This goes back to even before the securitized mortgage schemes of Bill Clinton, Timothy Geithner, Hank Snow, Alan Greenspan, and Janet Yellen. The securitized gambling casino of the black holes where unbelievable amounts of money are laundered in the international dark pools of the remix and all those other little nifty little terms they use around the fraud closure industry. Isn't this interesting stuff? K.C. Tuckness. Old K.C. Tuckness from the Woodlands, Texas. She's traveling all over the United States. You know, she carries a license. She's a licensed private investigator. Interesting. She works for CBS and Disney Corporation, too. But, wow. She even knows about Nelda Luce, baby. Old Nelda Radabow Blair. There from the Woodlands. Nelda was a legal news analyst there for Ted Turner at CNN. Nelda Luce Radabow Blair. Marcus Winberry. Jimmy Dozier. Peter Spears. The Montgomery County Commissioner's Court of Conroe, Texas. Come on down, folks, because we're going to talk about an awful lot of racketeering, bank robbing, whitewashing, covering up, and misprision a felony. The giant obstructions of justice that have been going on. Isn't this correct, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, Eric Holder, Eric Schneiderman, Loretta Lynch, Jimmy Comey, Robert Mueller, Louis Freeh, William Webster, William Weld. This story is massive, folks. It's unbelievably massive. And to my friend Ed Grillhart, the filmmaker of Made Off with America, he's a buddy of mine. Wonderful film, Ed. This saga, this never-ending crime spree, the never-ending looting of America's financial system, it goes way past Abramoff. Remember old Jack Abramoff? And Bernie Madoff? And the crowd around Phil Graham, and I could just go on all for the rest of for the rest of my life I could be talking about how they stole so much money. It is absolutely staggering. And my old pal, excuse me, my old pal President Donald Trump, draining the swamp. Isn't this fun, Don Trump? Drain the swamp. I wonder who started the Drain the Swamp movement. Because it darn sure wasn't Donald Trump. That's a fact. Donald Trump, what Eric Schneiderman's been caught doing, is nothing compared to what the more and more and more and more land fiasco, the Moreland Commission, the Moreland Commission covered up in New York for Andy Cuomo, and you guessed it, Department of Environmental Conservation, Basil Sagos, come on down, and this gang around Mr. Pervert himself there, Schneiderman, the abominable Eric there in Albany, New York. Folks, I'm leaving it right there. As always, hasta la vista. God bless. And Pam Raglan, Renee Powers, Valerie Lopez, Sherry, and I got so many other people out there. Ed Grillhart, even Amon Bundy and Cliven Bundy, the Bunkerville gang, and the Hammonds and the Finnecums. They know that this guy right here, he ain't kidding around. This is no joke, folks. Next time, and yes, of course, we will be coming back.